Welcome back to Split Decision. This week on episode 17, we're going to recap UFC Vegas 80, Dawson versus Green. Then we're going to stay in Vegas to preview UFC Vegas 81, Yusuff versus Barboza. After that, we're going to draft our top 5 TV shows. And then we'll preview our favorite football matchups across college and the NFL. And finally, we'll cover our bets and picks for this week. But first, don't forget to go to splitdecisionpod.com where you'll find all of our recent episodes, our merch, our picks, recaps, and more. Again, that's splitdecisionpod.com. All right, let's go.
All right, so let's move on to our recap of UFC Vegas 80. The main event was an exciting one. It was a quick one. And it was, I think, the biggest favorite of the night lost in the main event. That was Grant Dawson, the favorite, losing to the fan favorite, Bobby King Green, by 33-second knockout.
I don't know if I would say fan favorite Bobby Green.
He is a big, for his record in the UFC, which is 12-9-1 now. He has a pretty big.
He does have a big fan following. I just don't know if I would say fan favorite.
In this fight, he was the fan favorite, definitely.
Dawson has a lot of respect from the fans, and he's not really beaten.
Yeah, but he didn't lose respect, but he kind of lost some of his lust when he had the controversial split decision win.
Oh, I forgot about that, even though we spoke about it last week.
Against Manson. But this was Bobby Green, his second win in a row after beating Tony Ferguson.
And he demolished Tony Ferguson. I guess he kind of dominated Dawson here as well. So
dominated Dawson. Dawson's first career UFC loss, so it's a big deal from him. He moves to 20 wins, 2 losses now. I mean, this was the game plan for Dawson coming in was get Bobby Green to the ground
and just win the fight.
Bobby Green's best path of victory was catching Grant Dawson and knocking him out on the feet, and that's kind of exactly what happened.
Yeah, you saw
first major exchange, really.
Right, dude. Dawson kind of shook his head, but moved. Fainting a little bit, trying to figure out if he wants to shoot a takedown or not.
There's a strange feint. It was an awkward movement.
It almost looked like a takedown, but he was getting ready to have to absorb a strike because he knows that Green can, back away and strike at the same time. And he just couldn't hang.
And Bobby Green, I think he caught him with a left hand and just dropped him to the ground, got a few ground and pound shots in, but Grant Dawson wasn't fighting back. The fight was over.
Yeah, just immediately it was over. A lot of respect after the fight. Who do you think Bobby Green fights next? I have a few options in mind.
Well, I think his options are open because, as I said, he kind of has a bigger name than his record stands. So he could fight anyone from like RDA. I think he talked about Dan Hooker.
Talked about Dan Hooker
in the post fight, which I would love to see that fight because it's two guys kind of
just striking, mainly striking bout,
and everybody likes to watch those two guys fight. So I think the options are open for him. He's in a good spot.
He is. Let's rewind back to May. This is not where you thought Bobby Green was going to be ending his 2023. Looking back that far, you thought Bobby Green could have just been on his way out, not, mounting a comeback, putting himself kind of firmly in the top 15.
Yeah, he's a guy now. This is his 10th year in the UFC. He's definitely going to be around for year 11, it looks like. This was a solid win for Bobby Green, main event. Always good to see one of those vets that's kind of been up and down come in and get an
solid
impressive
win.
Victory late in their career to kind of reestablish themselves.
For the co-main event, we had Joe Bodybags Pyfer, not Piper, almost putting Abdul Razak Al-Hazain in a body bag with a triangle choke in the second round. He put him out cold. Al-Hazain tried to tap, but his fist was closed.
The guy was tapping with his fist closed. He was panicking.
Yeah, and
for good reason, because he went out, completely out.
Yeah, eyes rolled back in his head. He didn't even stand to get his hand raised. He went straight to the hospital.
Yeah, when you get that choked out, they got to check, make sure everything's good.
So Joe Pyfer's that dude.
5 straight wins for Pyfer.
Right.
5 straight finishes as well. So that's an impressive streak.
It's rare to see somebody this big with such a dominant wrestling background. This guy secured 3 takedowns inside of 2 rounds.
He was beating him up on the feet, too. So
that was actually what I was about to say.
Totally dominated him throughout the entire fight.
Complete double threat. So, look at somebody like Bo Nickel, Paul Craig, who can strike well, but they're very good on the ground. Joe Pyfer's stacking right up next to those guys, in my
anytime
opinion.
you have both assets to your game, you have a chance to move up the ladder
Very, very quickly.
very quickly because
So-
you can match up with anybody.
He said that Paul Craig's going to get his ass beat to Brendan Allen,
Brendan Allen,
which I like both fighters there.
me too.
But
And
as a
whoever
Louisiana
loses-
guy,
whoever loses, I don't know. Paul Craig's my guy though.
I know, but we're not talking about those fights now. I think what you were about to say is whoever loses would be a viable candidate.
Viable candidate. I think Chris Curtis might be a good one too.
Yeah, good striking performance. The thing that I think Chris Curtis would run into problems there would be is just in the wrestling alone. You're looking at the sheer dominant performance in just looking at this past weekend. Pyfer's like a force to be reckoned with is I think how they say it, right?
Correct. But you also got to remember Al Hassan's a guy that he's not. I mean, he had 0 subs in his career. He's not a ground guy. He's a knockout guy. He had a good game plan.
I think somebody like Brad Tavares, if you're not focusing on a wrestler, somebody like Brad Tavares or Chris Curtis would be, great options for him to fight moving
Yeah, I
up
think
his
he's definitely
chain.
moving up the ladder though, getting closer to getting ranked, and then once you get ranked,
Yeah. He was also awarded, they didn't give a fight of the night. They had just awarded 4 $50,000 bonuses. This is one of those.
Yeah, I think
So-
usually they call it a performance of the night.
Performance of the night. I was trying to think of the term. I just didn't
Yeah.
want to sound like an idiot. I do that often enough as it is.
Yeah,
So,
solid win from Pyfer. He really made himself
a contender in my opinion.
contender, and he put good tape out there. It was a good performance.
Yep.
All right, so the next fight we're moving on to is Joaquin Buckley, who put on a great performance against Morano. Buckley came in, he dominated the fight. Morano really had no answers for him. Won every round, arguably had a 10-8 round. Even had 2 takedowns in the fight. Won by unanimous decision. Buckley looks like a new man at 170. It seems to have, I don't want to say resurrected his career, but let him take that next step almost.
Found his power.
Found his power. He found where he should be.
Right. Made it not too down of a weight class to where he's having to cut constantly, cut for the entire camp to get through the weight, but having to cut still keeps all his power.
I mean, he's a guy with the way he fights. If he can get a few wins in a row, he'll have a lot of people that are excited to watch him fight, and he'll grow a fan base because he is one of the more exciting guys to watch fight. Just how different he is and how athletic he is.
No, I agree. 2-0 since moving to welterweight, which
7-4 now overall in the UFC. So,
like you said, career moving in the right direction. I think because of this win, he feels the same way. So following his win, he asked for it's weird. He asked for a main event of a fight night specifically.
yeah, you got to know your place. He's big enough to main event a fight night, but he knows he can't main event.
I know, but it was just so weird because how he was saying it was so weirdly specific. He was like, listen, this is not a demand. This is just a request. Can I please headline a UFC fight night?
Hey, you got to call your shot sometimes.
So I appreciate that. I think, honestly, I agree with you. I think he's a perfect candidate for it. Perfect fight idea for me.
The
Or
only
from
thing
me.
that makes me hesitant is we already saw Kevin Holland knock him the fuck out.
Well, that was what I would
Tell
say.
him he had a booger in his nose and then knock him out.
A rematch for that fight. Kevin Holland versus Joaquin Buckley.
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but
Remember, Joaquin Buckley took that fight. Coming into the UFC on short notice was his debut. He did get knocked out, yes, but I do believe he grew since then. So at least it would be a better, at least competition for Buckley and
it
Holland.
would get people to tune in because people would like to see both those guys fight.
And Holland's coming off of a loss.
Exactly. Another guy I think could be in there. Neil Magny maybe, also a guy coming off of a loss
Right, I agree.
against Ian Gary. He's a guy ranked 13, 14, I believe. So that'd be a good fight. Michael Chiesa, if he wants to fight again.
Yeah, if he wants to get murdered, that would be great.
I don't know. We don't know if he's done or not, but that would be up there. And then a dark horse. I don't know. I know he would fight him because he's a guy that fights literally anybody if you ask him to fight.
If he's in the States, he'll do
But
it.
I think JDM deserves. He's newly ranked number 12. I think he deserves somebody 10, 9,
Yeah.
somebody above him so he can because he's a guy moving up. But I would like to see that fight too. Joaquin Buckley, JDM, Jack Della Maddalena.
I agree. It would be a good one. I don't see him moving moving down to take that fight. Another monstrous performance in the lightweight division, and as we say every single week, it's probably the scariest division in the UFC. Normal-sized dudes walking around just being murderers. Drew Dober knocked Ricky the Gladiator Glenn out halfway through the first round with just a vicious assault. Like, it's great. Like, he stood him up, and then when Glenn took the punch to the face, his expression just went, oh, fuck.
Drew Dober's a scary dude. Did you ever watch Fairly Odd Parents?
I did.
What is the chin guy superhero?
Chip? No, that's Chip Skylark. That's the musician. I don't know. We'll look it up, but I know exactly. The Crimson Chin.
It might be the Crimson Chin. That is Drew Dober. He has an exquisite chin, and he looked like a superhero in this fight. He dominated the fight, and like you said, once he got a clean shot on Glenn, his whole demeanor and facial expression changed. That power was for real.
Look, he's had a good long career. He's still pretty young. He added that win to his belt. He added a UFC record in the lightweight division, 9 knockouts.
He's now won 4 out of his last 5 fights.
It's pretty ridiculous. He called out Michael Chandler because I do agree it would be a striking masterpiece.
I mean, who has the better chin between him and or the better physique? Him versus Michael Chandler. That'd be awesome.
That would hold true in a fight with him and Dustin Poirier, him and Justin Gaethje. But he's just not quite there in the rankings.
I think he gets a rank guy
next.
next, but it's definitely not a guy in the top 5.
So who's more realistic? He's lost to Islam, Frivola, Darush, but he's beaten Bobby Green, Terrence McKinney. You know, Bobby Green just
maybe a
won.
rematch versus Bobby Green. Dan Hooker, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight. I think that would be a good fight. That would be another one where both guys are coming and bringing the violence.
Yeah. What about Grant Dawson? Just lost.
Grant Dawson, that wouldn't be bad.
They're on the same kind of recovery timeline to at least be able to fight again.
Yeah, I think Dober's going to come back a lot quicker than Dawson.
Mentally, for sure.
And then what about Jalen Turner, another guy that wouldn't be a bad fight.
Kind of always down to fight.
Always down to fight. He just had that great fight with Dan Hooker a few months ago.
Or Dustin Poirier even.
I still think that's way...
it's very high
jump.
Up there, but...
And Poirier's not taking that fight. Poirier's only fighting, like he said, fights that sell, legends.
Yeah, that's true. He's in a different spot in his career. I just want to see Poirier fight every week.
I agree. But Drew Dober, I think he has a lot of options going forward. I think as a guy, he can... When he's on his A game, he can make some noise in the lightweight division. I'm excited to see where he goes.
All right, so opening up the main card and then closing out our recap of UFC Vegas 80, Bill Algeo, Senor Perfecto, dominated all 3 rounds against Alexander Hernandez, proving to everybody that he belongs in the UFC. He used his size, his elusive striking, his kicks to keep Alex at bay. He won the fight unanimous decision, however you want to say it. 30-27 on the cards.
Yeah, he picked up his his 5th UFC win, moves to 5-3 overall. 2nd straight UFC win, so maybe he's building a little momentum to try to, progress his career. Maybe a couple wins away from getting a ranked fight.
Yeah, he's a big dude in the featherweight division. I think that's one of the main things that kind of helped elevate him in this fight specifically. He was able to do a lot to keep Alexander Hernandez at bay, keeping him at distance, not letting him get anything started. It was a great performance. It showed his versatility. There was no knockouts, but there was a knockdown. So it just showed.
I like his call-outs at the end of the fight.
Yeah, we had call-outs. We had Billy Q, we had Crone Gracie, Anthony Fauci, Mark Zuckerberg, and then he said, I guess we can talk about Nate Landwehr at the end.
Personally, I would like to see him versus Anthony Fauci.
I'd take him and Fauci. Honestly, when I kind of felt Crone Gracie was a joke, and then he said Fauci, and I was like, I don't even know which ones of these call-outs are serious.
Yeah, he's throwing it.
He's just throwing anybody. He's like, I don't know. I'll do whatever. Just give me a fight, pay me. I don't care. He said his call-outs never work. DC was laughing about it. Mad respect to Bill. I don't know who he fights next, but it's not going to be a ranked opponent, not quite yet. You know, a couple more fights, a couple more wins under his belt, and I think he'll be there.
All right, so let's move on to our top 5 this week. This week, another week at the Apex in Vegas, so we're kind of doing a wild card top 5 draft. This week, our top 5 draft is going to be TV shows. I think this is probably one of the most wide-ranging, with plenty of good option top 5s we've done in a while.
Yeah, it really matters who you are as well.
And there's a lot of ways to go with it.
Yeah, what kind of stuff you like. I mean, could you imagine if you asked an 8-year-old?
Exactly.
You would dominate him in a top 5 draft.
This is going to be a fun one. I think we both have a lot of TV shows we haven't watched together, but like we've both seen them and talked about.
Right. We're aware that we know that we've watched a lot of the same things.
So I think this is going to be a fun one, and I think this week you get to start off first. So you get number 1, and then we go in the snake order. So why don't you kick us off?
All right. This one has been tearing at me for a while. And a while just being all day.
I know we both have like around the top, like same.
Probably half of the top 10 out of the 20. If we each wrote down 20, I'd say 10 are the same.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
so
order.
There's a good chance these first few picks are taken ones from each other.
So this pick, my number 1, is Sopranos.
It's a good one. That would have been probably my number 1.
The reason being, not only is it a fantastic show filled with drama, I just watched it for the first time
such a good show.
In the past few years, and it holds up. I binged it. I've been talking to you about rewatching it already. Sopranos is a great option, but the other reason why I picked it as my number 1, a lot of shows kind of give credit to Sopranos.
It's such a good. It would have been my number 1.
Right.
It's a great show.
So they give credit to the Sopranos for giving them the idea or the audacity to do what they were trying to do. You know, so kudos to the Sopranos. Such a great show, and I think nothing else has to be said about that.
That's a good number 1 pick. My number 1 is one that I'm rewatching. It's probably the show I've rewatched the most in my life. This is probably like my 7th time watching it through and through, no lie. It's going to be Mad Men. I think it's one of the best written shows in terms of characters, character development, attention to detail, good storylines. And it's hard to make a show that interesting
about really nothing.
When there's no action going on.
Dude, if you think about it, you know, Sopranos, what is Sopranos about? It's about the mob. You know, it talks about all their crime. It has the action, the violence, and everything.
Yeah, but it's about the ad agency. It has the ad stuff.
I know,
and
but I'm saying think about it broadly. Don't let yourself dive in. I agree with you. It's a crazy good show, but just on a broad spectrum, Sopranos is about all this crazy mischief.
It's just about an ad agency.
And then Mad Men's about an ad agency set in the 60s.
Yeah, but just the period piece.
It is such a good show, though. I agree with you. It's a solid show. It was on my list. It was going to be somewhere in this top 5. I just don't know where I could have gotten it. I assumed it was also going to be on your list. Donald Draper, what is it, John Hamm?
John Hamm. I mean, just an iconic character.
Great guy.
Iconic TV character.
I agree. Great top 1.
So we're going in the snake. So I get my number 2. This is a tough one for me because there's a lot of good shows. There's a couple shows I might have put here, but I think I can get them later in the draft.
Oof. See, that's what makes me nervous about the draft situation. But
this is a number 2 that I think is universally regarded as one of the best shows of all time. Another iconic character in Walter White. My number 2, Breaking Bad. I mean,
had that on my list as well, man.
You said Mad Men's kind of just about an ad agency. Breaking Bad's about a science teacher making meth. That's the broad scope of it.
Right. See, that's what I like to hear.
That is it's a great show, a great storyline. I mean, it made people take Bryan Cranston serious as an actor. The only thing I had seen him in before that of relevance was Malcolm in the Middle, where he was the funny dad.
So I'm kind of in the same boat there. I didn't watch a lot of things with Bryan Cranston until between Malcolm in the Middle and Breaking Bad.
But that just put him on the map, and now he's regarded as one of the best actors.
But it's also crazy,
in Hollywood, TV show wise, at least.
At least looking back on my perception of the show, they almost placed him in the same kind of house as the Malcolm in the Middle house.
Oh, there's a bunch of theories online that it's the same guy. It's the same character.
Bro, that's wild. I don't know. I agree it's a great show. It was definitely going to be on my list as well. I'm still trying to get my wife to finish it.
Such a good show.
But in the broad
Even had
scope
one of the
of
best.
things, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to give away another picks, but it had one of the best sequel or like spin-off shows of all time.
Oh yeah, that is another good show. I don't know. What's your number 3 pick?
Well, I just had my 1, 2, so you get your 2, 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true. Sorry. So my number 2, I'm kind of trying to buy time because this list is hard.
Like, I'll do another pick if you want me to.
No, don't. All right. So if my number 1's The Sopranos, broad scope being, just the crime, the power behind it and everything. Man, I think I got to go Game of Thrones as my number 2. I know you didn't watch this show, and I didn't watch it until it was completely out.
I tried to watch it. It wasn't for me, but
Yeah,
I respect it.
It's a fantasy show. It's one of those things that's just not for everybody.
I respect it though.
But it is a wild journey. Most people who have seen it, I also would rope in the kind of prequel show. They, it's not connected necessarily, but it's just as good. Game of Thrones, Fantasyland. It's got dragons. Ice demon people.
The only thing
things.
I'll say about Game of Thrones is pretty much every show we mentioned so far has like one main like iconic character. While Game of Thrones has a lot of good ones, there's nobody that like a casual fan.
So
I don't think would be like, this is the.
I went I think it was out for 7 or 8 years or whatever. I started it when the final season was premiering weekly. Okay. Sean Bean or whatever his name is in the first season. It's like a huge named actor. They murder him in the first season of that show. Not even at the end of the season.
Yeah,
a
it's a
few
show where
episodes
they,
in.
you
They're
can't even-
using these massive actors and actresses.
You can't even attach yourself to people.
No, everyone dies. You just don't know when or how. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that's why I picked Game of Thrones, number 2. I think it kind of just holds that kind of weight. It's also a lengthy watch. It's long.
Show.
So number 2, Game of Thrones. Oh, number 3, another toughie. It's hard because you only get 5.
Yeah, that's kind
So
of the point.
it kind of goes into that rewatchability. It's gotta pull after you. You gotta be able to watch it anytime, to be able to get through it. I think The Office is my number 3. I could watch any episode and love the moment that it's in.
I've kind of I used to be like that, but lately I've kind of grown
Out
of The Office for the first time in my life. But it is a great show you can watch a whole bunch of times.
I like that it's not on Netflix anymore, because it makes it kind of gives you that love
It was
for
too
it.
accessible.
Right, it gives you a love for it back.
I do have Peacock though.
I do too. It's yeah. But in kind of regards of that, it's not in front of your face every day. Like if you're a Netflix user, which I am, I'm on Netflix all the time. If it was on there, that's all I would watch. I would never watch anything new. I'm happy that it's gone. That way I can kind of broaden my horizons. But The Office, probably the best comedy of my generation.
It's a good show. I mean,
And it's another
undeniable good show.
long binge-worthy show. It's connected, it's well thought out, well written, and it's smart. What you got for your number 3?
So my number 3 is going to be another show with an iconic character, another time, like a show set in time. My number 3 is going to be Peaky Blinders, Thomas Shelby. Great show. Kind of has Soprano vibes where it's like a mob. They're pretty much a mob in late 1910s, early 1920s Birmingham, Britain, like middle of the industrial age.
Yeah, you put me onto that show. It was a very, very good show.
Very good show.
That really opened my eyes to Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy, great actor.
Man, fantastic actor.
Thomas Shelby is an iconic character that I think he's become a meme almost. Thomas Shelby.
Yeah.
Especially the Peaky Blinders themselves, their whole style has become like a meme and a subculture.
Right, it really has. I when you initially told me about that show, you were telling me how good it was, and you're like, yeah, it's these these British people, you know, they're basically mobsters. They have razor blades in their hats. They're willing to slash you up. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was like, it doesn't seem interesting. And then I clicked on it, and it's got just this wildly in-depth story, well written. I think every show towards the end of its run goes a little crazy. This one kind of does the same thing, where he's like a senator.
Crazy. So he becomes a member of parliament.
Yeah.
And starts dealing with the Nazis.
Essentially a senator.
Starts dealing with Nazis. And
Right.
stuff.
So it's
kind of
it
flirts with Nazism.
Gets wild, but you know that's kind of how shows have to end, or kind of the natural course of shows. But I like that as a pick. Peaky Blinders is a very, very good show. What is your number 4, sir?
All right, so my number 4 is going to kind of, I don't know if this stretches the rules of TV show. It's going to be a mini series.
Oh, man, I don't want you to pick what I think you're going to pick.
My number 4 is going to be Band of Brothers.
Okay, not what I thought. That's good.
Band of Brothers, World War II D-Day story. I mean, it's a great show if you go back and watch it. Some great actors in it. Tom Hardy makes like a random appearance at the end.
Shout out Tom Hardy and Peaky Blinders as well.
Exactly. Band of Brothers, just a great show, an emotional one. When they get, I think it's like towards the end of the series, and they find a concentration camp.
Yeah.
It is like one of the most gut-wrenching. It's like, holy shit. They make it seem so real.
Yeah, you put me onto a lot of those war dramas, miniseries, documentaries, even books. Man, it's really eye-opening.
Those will fucking tug at your heart.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's really tough.
Great show. Tom Hanks was like the co-producer.
Oh, I didn't know
a writer.
That's cool.
I mean, just all around. They came out with the Pacific after, which was good, not quite as good. And supposedly they're about to come out with another one about some aviators in World War II.
The only issue, like they have that one, they have Generation Kill, which was another one similar to that. It was just set, I think, in the Gulf War, 2008, something like that.
Yeah, I believe so.
Very good show. Another one of those things where like it dives into kind of the psyche behind it. It kind of gives you as much of a feeling as a normal person could get of the emotions that are, you know, running through these people's heads that we just see on a screen. Very good stuff. It, you know, like you said, gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching, you know, makes you feel terrible for them, but it's great to watch. So that gives you 4. So I go 4 or 5, and then you go your last one, and then we're done, right?
Yep.
All right. Oh, man. So my number 4 has got to be, man, this is tough because I want to say a couple things, but the shows aren't done. So I don't feel like I can. I'll give them honorable mentions. The Wire. Did you ever see The Wire?
I did. It's a great show.
I love The Wire. It's a great show. It's another one of those shows.
Hit. They had Sopranos, and like a few years later, then they had that.
Right.
Going at so that it was like their second hit in a row, and I was like, holy shit. HBO's
Another
on
show
fire.
but it kind of directly paid homage to The Sopranos by being able to go on those, you know, jumping leaps of faith and hoping that the audience is going to love it because TV like that hadn't been done before. And having HBO as its backer to be able to show, you know, different kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, children committing crimes more or less just left and right. And painting the picture that, you know, was reality in some places. It was very good, very hard to watch in some cases. But a fantastic show, fantastic HBO show. I think kind of looking at this list, man, a lot of this was HBO stuff, huh?
They come out with good shows. They can show a lot more, as you said.
High quality content. All right.
So what you got for number 5?
So this one, I think for me, this show's been close to my heart forever. I've seen it through and through probably 4 times. I've even seen the new reboot season that they did in like 2017 that nobody watched. Man, the X-Files for me with...
Oh, what a loser.
I know. It just... Dude, that show's just always... The conspiracy behind it where it's not too serious, but it is serious. You know, they've kept it connected. They, you know...
I never got into it.
Tied up a bunch of loose ends. I love David Duchovny. He was great in Californication. I prefer him in this. X-Files, Mulder and Scully for the win.
You get the nerd vote.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's all you need, man.
Sometimes that is all you need.
X-Files, Number 5. What you got as your number 5th? And also, I didn't waste like a second pick for it.
So my
At least
my
there's
last
that.
pick is gonna be. It's a show you can watch. I've watched a few episodes.
Sounds like you love it.
More than once.
Oh, okay.
Watched a few episodes more than once. It's one of those shows. Funny guys. It's a reality show, but the banter between all three guys is amazing. What's your first guess?
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy?
Close.
Damn.
It's going to be the UK version of Top Gear.
Oh, dude, I
number
love
5.
that show. Yeah.
It's a great show. You learn a lot about cars. They're funny.
Hold on. Which era, though?
You know the era I'm talking about.
So the guys that went on to do the
Amazon series, yeah.
What was that called? Like the greatest
Grand
drive,
Tour.
Grand Tour. Yeah. Okay.
Those guys, Top Gear UK. Everybody knows what we're talking about when we name that as one of the best. I mean, it's just a great show. Their chemistry, all three guys, was perfect. They were funny. You
Yeah.
learned
James
about
May,
cars.
Madsen,
They had cool cars. They had shitty cars. It was just awesome. They went to insane places.
It's a good show.
They drove
for
across Africa and shit.
not a car person, but a car like somebody who wouldn't be bored by car talk.
Exactly. You didn't have to be super into cars to watch and enjoy the show.
And they also quite a few episodes. They take heavy stabs on real life current events.
They do that, and they will tell you what cars are good and what cars are. They'll straight up say like this car sucks.
Don't buy the Beetle or whatever. Yeah. Pretty
great
crazy.
show. Yeah, that's our top 5s. So my top 5 to recap: number 1, Mad Men; number 2, Breaking Bad; number 3, Peaky Blinders; number 4, Band of Brothers; and number 5, Top Gear, the UK edition.
And my top 5, obviously we both think each other's is better. Or no, not each other's. Our own is better. Sopranos number 1, Game of Thrones number 2. Number 3 is The Office. Number 4 is The Wire. Number 5 for the conspiracy theorists, X-Files.
All right, so let's move ahead to our UFC 81 preview this weekend. Main event.
Another one in the Apex.
Another one in the Apex, which is kind of disappointing. Edson Barboza, though, the legend, taking on Yusuff. That's the main event. We're going to start with the first fight of the main card, though. I think there's 6 fights in this main card. They just added one a couple days ago.
Yeah, and I think they're even trying to do that cancellation from last weekend. Felipe Lins and Ian Cutelaba. They're trying to move that to this weekend as well.
Yeah, so we'll see if that happens. But the first fight we're going to cover is Christian C-Rod Rodriguez, 9-1 overall, 2-1 in the UFC, coming off of a win against Rosa Jr. He kind of ended the teenage hype. Not ended the hype, but kind of...
It did stop the train, slowed down the train.
Slowed it down. And he's taking on the undefeated South African Cameron Simon, who trains with Dracus du Plessis. He knocks people out kind of like Dracus du Plessis has power. This is going to be a good fight, I think.
Yeah, I'm still in the camp that if you lose to Raul Rosa Jr., you need to retire because he's a teenager beating grown men up in the UFC. So good job, Christian Rodriguez, for getting to not retire. C-Rod's 2-1 in the UFC. You know, he's got a tough fight ahead of him with the knockout power of Cameron Simon. Honestly, on this one, I think the South African takes it. I think Simon being 9-0 isn't a fluke. He's 3-0 so far in the UFC. 2 finishes, I believe it was. Yeah, 2 knockouts.
2 TKO KO finishes.
Right. He has 6 total knockouts, 1 submission, 2 decisions. He's never lost a fight. I think he moves to 10-0 this weekend because he's an explosive striker, but he's also smart. He knows when not to just rush in there. He knows when to, kind of stand back and, time his shots.
Yeah, these are 2 guys, too. Rodriguez, 25. Cameron Simon, only 22. So 2 young guys and who have all the potential in the world, honestly, to keep moving up the rankings. I agree with you, though. I think Simon gets it done. I think he stays undefeated. Rodriguez, I think he's going to put up a good fight, and it's going to be a good fight, but I think Simon just has a little too much power.
In the flyweight division for the next fight, we have Edgar Chairez facing off again against Daniel De La Silva. This is a rematch from Noche UFC.
Had the crazy...
tap, not tap?
Well, it wasn't a tap. His arm went limp, so the ref...
Okay, so what do you prefer? Do you prefer somebody like Al Hassan, who is tapping and the ref can't tell and he goes unconscious? Or do you prefer The ref thinks he's tapping and he stops it.
If I
but
like the fighter getting choked, I'd rather he stop it early. But I would rather get a definite. At least he didn't fuck up the decision and take a win away from somebody dominating the fight.
Okay, so listen. Weirdly enough, Edgar Chairez was winning that round by a triangle choke. The ref thought De La Silva was tapped. His arm kind of went limp on the last fight. It didn't. They looked at the replay.
That took away his first win in the UFC. He's 0-1-1 now in the UFC.
Yeah.
Neither of these guys have a UFC win, by the way.
It's pretty crazy. Chairez is built like a freaking door. He has the broadest, flattest chest I've ever seen.
He has that Dustin Poirier wide body.
Yeah, but I don't know. It looks like his back is on backwards. It's weird. So that's a big rematch. I don't know who's going to win here, honestly.
I think Chairez is going to come in and he's the huge favorite.
He is the huge favorite. I just don't think he's going to win the same way. It's kind of like he got Chairez and De La Silva both got to see like a preview of what they got to expect in a fight against each other. It's like almost they got to watch a movie trailer of them fighting them. So I'm interested to see
De Silva. He's lucky this wasn't his 5th straight time getting finished.
Yeah, because in my opinion, Chairez was well on his way.
I didn't think it was that premature, if I'm being honest. His arm went limp to me.
Look, I'm gonna side with you. I'd say Edgar Chairez wins. I don't think he gets the sub this time. I think it might go to the cards because De La Silva's gonna just have to be a little bit smarter.
De La Silva's never been to the cards.
Well, maybe it's time.
Even in his wins and losses, never once been to the scorecards.
He's been to the no contest cards.
5-1.
Been to the no contest cards, brother.
All right, so the next fight we're going to cover is Andre Petroski taking on Michel Pereira. Both guys come in 5 straight wins. Petroski 5-0 overall in the UFC with 3 finishes, 3 out of his 5 wins. He looks like that dude, 10-1. A career record, as I said, 5-0 in the UFC. He's taking on Michel Pereira, who has a lot more experience than him. Michel Pereira still somehow only 30 years old.
Michel Pereira's kind of like me, though. He got weight issues.
He does have. He did miss weight in his last fight.
Bro, like 3 pounds.
And Stephen Thompson Wonder Boy decided not to fight him.
Yeah.
Which fair play to him. But yeah, because he didn't even try. If you missed by 3 pounds, that means you kind of just gave up.
Dude, it's like you went to Domino's and got a large pizza right before you weighed in.
But as I said, he's won 5 straight. But the problem is he hasn't, because of that issue, he hasn't fought since May of 2022. Obviously, there's a lot of time in between that fight and the rest of the time. So, like,
yeah,
he just hasn't been active. So you have to wonder if there's going to be a little octagon rust, if he's going to come in and be performing at top level, because he's fighting a guy in Petroski
who's been on fire.
And he's fought last in August. So he's rolling.
Yeah. And I guess, well, this might be the benefit to Pereira in this sense that he's new to the middleweight division. So, he may be able to just kind of be free, but that may weigh on his lungs a little bit. May add power, weigh on his lungs. You never know how he's going to take it. If he keeps to the lower end of the weight class, and just kind of beefs up right before the fight, that'd be a good thing as long as he's staying lean. But we already seen him have problems with weight in the other division. So who knows what we're going to see out of Pereira coming out.
I have Petroski winning this fight. I think his streak continues. I think he moves to 6 wins in a row, 6-0 in the UFC. I just think, as we said, because of the he's been busy. He's been fighting and
right. No ring rust.
No ring rust. He's been very active.
Taking
on a guy who just took a lot of time off. I got Petroski winning.
I think I have to agree. I'm going to pick Petroski as well. I think he's going to ride that hot streak he's on, carry it into a Pereira that could very well, like you said, be rusty. And what'll probably be rated as a toss-up for the lines up until Saturday, we have Jonathan Dragon Martinez in the bantamweight division fighting Adrian Yanez. Evenly matched guys here. Betting lines are telling you that. I got -110 on both.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a pick 'em.
Very skilled strikers here.
Yeah, Yanez comes in. He lost his last fight, but before that had 9 straight wins, 5-1 in the UFC, and 4 out of his 5 wins pointing to your point of both guys being strong strikers. 4 out of his 5 wins have been KO TKO. So he's a guy, he brings it
every single time. And I think that's exactly what we're going to be seeing. I think no matter if it's, a ground heavy attack, because both guys can submit you. We've seen, they're not aiming for it every time, but 2 submissions each isn't anything to scoff at all. They're both obviously going to be aiming for the knockout. I think this one we could see some ground game coming in because you have to be, understanding what the other guy's bringing into the fight. So I think to mix it up, Jonathan Martinez is going to try to, get some takedowns, work the ground game, get that knockout early. I picked Jonathan Martinez to win the fight.
Yeah, I got Yanez, so we'll see how this one goes. All right, so the co-main event of the evening is Jennifer Maia taking on Vivian Araujo. Maia comes in 2 wins in a row, 3-2 in her last 5, 6-5 overall in the UFC. 6 straight fights have gone to the scorecard. She's won some of those. She's lost some of those, obviously. So she's a decision fighter. Hasn't really knocked anybody out lately. Hasn't got a sub lately. So look for that. She's taking an Araujo who comes in on a 2-fight losing streak. 5-4 overall in the UFC. How do you see this fight going?
Well, to be honest, she did lose to lady killers, Amanda Ribas and Alexa Grasso. So it's
that is fair.
It's not like she lost to nobodies. So honestly, I think this is gonna be still Jennifer Maia's fight. I think she's just more poised. I think she's kind of got that success in her favor, giving her motivation. Winning a couple. Having early success recent is going to just help her get the win, in my opinion. I think she's going to win by decision. A lot of women's fights do end like that, especially on the fight night ones because they're not ranked, so they're not as good. So, I think we get a Jennifer Maia win here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we both agree. I think Maia wins. I think it's probably by decision.
All right, so to kick off the main event for UFC Vegas 81, we have Sadiq Yusuff in the featherweight division taking on the legend Edson Barboza. These 2 guys have tons of combined experience, but Barboza's, just got years under his belt.
He's been in the UFC since 2010.
I think I was a junior, sophomore in high school. Nuts.
Yeah, it is crazy. He's an exciting fighter, as you said, a legend. I think he's one of the more entertaining fighters to watch because he's such a good kickboxer.
Yeah.
And he's so good at striking. He's also, for being 37 years old, he's fucking ripped.
It's crazy. I always not get weird looks, but it's like when I look at him, I'm like, how? How do you do that?
It's crazy. And his last fight was a crazy knee knockout against Billy Q.
Yep.
So it looked like he kind of maybe found a little bit of his magic back.
He found his mojo. Age versus experience in this one. You got Yusuff.
Yusuff is coming off 2 straight wins.
He is, but he's younger. I think not he's younger. I think to the benefit of Barboza, the fact that he has more experience is actually going to give him the edge.
Yusuff is 6-1 in the UFC, so it's not like he's new, but he hasn't fought in over a year. So I think, as you said, the ring rust combined with experience, I'm picking Barboza in the fight. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. I think it's going to be worthy action-wise of a main event. I'm excited for this.
A free fight after, I will be honest, after having no fights 2 weeks ago, I don't care who's fighting. I'm watching them. I was trying to go find hobo fights around town or something to watch because I was just bored, dude.
So you got Barboza too?
I got Edson Barboza, the legend, keeping it on the grill.
All right, so now let's move on to our weekly football segment where we cover the top college games and top pro games of the week. Just kind of throw the game out there, give you our picks and our quick thoughts. We're going to do 5 college, 5 pro again. And to start off, we're going to go with the best ranked matchup of the week in college football. 2 top 10 teams, 2 rivals. Number 8, Oregon. Number 7, Washington. 2 teams with quarterbacks probably in the top 10 of the Heisman rankings right now, with Washington has Penix, and then Oregon has Bo Nix. So,
man, I almost corrected you there, but then I was like, I don't know enough about college to say whether or not he's wrong. So good thing I didn't say you were wrong.
Both teams explosive offenses, cool uniforms. As I said, this is a rivalry game, so this is going to be an exciting game. I usually am a big Giant Oregon fan, and I still like them right now, but for some reason, I like Washington's quarterback. I think Washington, this is their year in the Pac-12. I think they get it done, so Washington's my pick.
So you pick Washington. So look, the Washington's at home, right?
Washington's at home.
So the Ducks are +3 going into Washington, +125 money line. The over/under 67.5. That screams to me that it's going to be a high-scoring matchup.
Yeah, both teams have explosive offenses.
I think that Oregon is going to do what they've been doing, and that's putting up points when they need to. In their biggest contested game, I can't remember the exact matchup. They still won, but it was like 38-30. I think they're going to do that here. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think they're going to just kind of win the shootout. I pick the Ducks.
All right, so the next one we're going to move on to is the rivalry game. USC, number 10, taking on number 21 Notre Dame. Notre Dame coming off of a disappointing loss against Louisville where they were the favorites. And they're taking on USC, who hasn't been the most impressive team, but they have maybe the most impressive player, one of them.
Caleb Williams.
And Caleb Williams. He's been carrying this team. This is going to be an interesting game. It's at Notre Dame. As I said, this is another rivalry game. I had a hard time with this one. I've been thinking a while about it. USC is +114, Notre Dame -125. Something's telling me Caleb Williams is going to come in and win this game for him. I don't think it's going to be pretty for USC. It's probably going to be pretty for him. I think USC figures out a way to get it done on the road. I have USC winning.
So I don't know a lot about the gameplay differences. Or I'm still figuring out the gameplay differences between college and NFL. You know, how these spreads come about, how these wild overs and unders just happen every single week.
It's because
the defenses are...
Well, there's so much variety in how teams play all across the country.
But defenses are just bad, man. We see that a lot with LSU this season. The Trojans are winning games, but they're winning games because they have to score 40, 50, 60 points to do that.
Yeah, they went to overtime against Arizona in their last win.
And Arizona's not even that good. You know, like, I agree. I think USC is going to pull it out, but there is a reason that Notre Dame's favored at home. I think it's going to be a very tough matchup.
There's also a reason USC's won. Obviously, they're undefeated right now, but they've moved down in the rankings the last 3 weeks.
Right.
Because they've been so unimpressive.
Yeah, it's like you're winning, but if Caleb Williams is the only person who can produce for the team or force production for the team.
The whole offense has production. It's the defense.
Right, but what I'm saying is Caleb Williams is elevating those players, and the defense is
first round
underwhelming.
Talent. They have NFL talent all over there. Caleb Williams is good. The whole offense is good.
So it's crazy to me that Notre Dame is still favored, being 5-2.
They're at home, and this is a rivalry game.
That's one of the things. I don't
They play a lot harder schedule than USC.
I don't agree with how the rankings and all that stuff works with the college, but you know, I don't get to say so. I just gotta live with it. You pick USC as well, right?
Yeah. All right.
Sick.
So next game we're moving on to is another ranked matchup. It's an ACC matchup. Number 25 Miami coming off maybe the most embarrassing loss I've ever seen,
dude,
in my lifetime. They're taking on number 12 North Carolina at North Carolina. North Carolina, the -180 favorite. Talk about that Miami loss. We got to go back to that because that was an absolute meltdown.
Miami, Georgia Tech. 40 seconds left.
No, ended up when the play ran was like 35 seconds.
There you go. 35 seconds left.
All they had to do was kneel the ball.
They
literally
did not
won the game.
line up in victory formation.
Georgia Tech had no timeouts. It was literally kneel the ball.
They snapped
Game
the ball,
over.
Fumbled it, and with no timeouts.
Georgia Tech went 4 plays, 75 yards in like 30 seconds with no timeouts.
Got the score to win the game. Upset Miami.
Miami was undefeated previous to that. I mean, that was just one of those losses that has to kill you.
That's on the coach, bro.
It is on the coach, 100% on the coach. And it's one of those things, it's kind of like when a UFC fighter loses their first fight. How are they going to respond after that? Because either they're going to be uninspired or they're going to come out
with a vengeance.
I am leaning towards uninspired. Miami has notoriously underperformed over the past like 20 years. North Carolina, they haven't exactly been performing great in that same span, but this year undefeated right now. They have an NFL quarterback in Drake May. So he's projected possibly first round. I think North Carolina gets it done at home. I have the Tar Heels, number 12 Tar Heels, getting a win.
I actually think Miami's going to upset the Tar Heels here. I think they're going to do the exact opposite of what you think. I think they're going to come out with motivation because at the end of the day, the players don't have to hang their head and at least say that the loss was on them.
Did you see? Well, yeah, they have no faith in your coaching staff. That's not good.
Well, at least they have faith in themselves now.
Do they? Why would that put faith in themselves?
Because they didn't screw it up.
The guy that fumbled screwed it up. And the defense screwed it up.
Yeah, he probably isn't too happy. They
still screwed it up. The coach just shouldn't have put him in that position.
I don't understand why, if you're the quarterback there, you don't just, we're going to kneel it because I understand, like, this is what you should do. I don't care if I'm getting benched.
Yeah, just a bad look.
But anywho, I picked Miami, you picked Tar Heels, so we got to go against each other for that pick. The next one we have are the UCLA Bruins.
Number 18.
Fighting. Coming out of the red corner, the Oregon State Beavers.
Number 15. A Pac-12 matchup for the last time. This is
Pac-12 for the last time, not a matchup for the last time.
Pac-12 matchup for the last time. One team's moving to the Big Ten. One team's staying in the Pac-12.
Still blows my mind that they're going to be the Pac-2.
They'll figure it out somehow. Neither team is like known for their football programs, but they're both pretty good. UCLA has a young quarterback who's exciting, but has made mistakes that have kept games close that shouldn't have been close, just like last week against Washington State.
Oregon State's quarterback last week accounted for 5 of the touchdowns. I would love to say his name, DJ Ugalele. I apologize.
Yeah.
God, that's bad.
He has a nickname that's easier to say. He was at Clemson and then transferred to Oregon State. He's been playing great. I think this is going to be a great game. Oregon State has a great atmosphere, hard place to play. I think they get it done at home. They're minus 185 favorites. I think they're the better. This is the second year in a row they're good. I think they're the better team. UCLA is still learning how to be a good team. I just think the experience of that, I got the Beavers.
I agree. I think the Beavers are going to win. I picked against them last week, and I was wrong. So I think I'm going to ride with them this week. They're favored minus 185, like you said, minus 3.5 on the line. I think they get the job done. Oregon State for the win.
All right, and the last college game is going to be number 22, LSU Tigers taking on the non-ranked Auburn Tigers, SEC rivalry matchup. LSU's offense, right now, Jaden Daniels legitimately has the best stats in the nation at quarterback. He's outplaying everybody. The whole offense is outplaying everybody. They have one of the leading rushers in the SEC, but this defense is so goddamn awful.
Man, it's crazy, right? Similar to how bad USC's defense has been.
Similar to how bad. They did have a good second half against Missouri where they forced a couple turnovers. We'll see if they can at least – they don't even have to be good. If they were average, this team can beat pretty much anybody because of how good their offense is playing.
Right. See, the problem is, for me, I don't think it's going to happen the same way, but Ole Miss had no reason winning the game they did against LSU. Just like Auburn has no reason to cover.
But to cover, yeah, because Ole Miss is a way better team than Auburn.
That I was giving a kind of edged comparison. Auburn has no reason to cover in this game, but I feel like they are somehow going to because of how bad LSU's 11.5.
11.5.
With an over-under of 60.5. That's begging for another high-scoring game.
I'm going to say LSU win. Obviously, I'm saying LSU wins. I think it's going to be high-scoring, but I think they cover. I'm going to say like 48-34.
Right. It's not going to be another pretty win for LSU. I think they're going to move to 5-2, dropping the Auburn Tigers to 3-3. Another point for this week, by the way. This is the second week in a row we've had the Tigers versus the Tigers. So to me, that's kind of weird and interesting. But I pick LSU as well. I think they're going to win, but I think Auburn is going to cover that 11.5 because of how terrible LSU's defense has been.
All right, so let's move on to our NFL picks this week. We picked 5 games. Really just, there wasn't a lot of great matchups, but we picked really some of the best teams and then a couple of our favorite teams, or one of our favorite teams. The first game we're going to cover is that favorite team. It's the Bengals at home against the Seahawks. Bengals coming off their best performance of the year. They beat the Cardinals. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase seem to finally be on the same connection.
Yeah.
Jamar just torched.
I wrote down that Joe Burrow connected with Jamar always open Chase.
Did you see what he posted on social media?
Was it a 7-Eleven?
Just a 7-Eleven. That's all it was.
Well, like, look, if you're going to talk shit in the press conference and look, say, like, man, I'm sorry, but I'm always fucking open, like, throw it to me. At least Joe Burrow hands you 19 targets. Jamar Chase handled him. 15 receptions, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. Absolutely torched the Arizona Cardinals last week.
And I think Seattle's a good team. I think they're 3-1 coming into this.
3-1 coming in. You're right.
3-1. I just think the Bengals are. I'm hoping this is where they turn their season around. They're 2-3. They still have plenty of time. They're only 1 game back in their division. I have the Bengals winning at home. I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase continue their connection.
I agree with you there. I think the Bengals are going to win. I think Geno Smith's been playing more like a game manager this season as opposed to his kind of like breakout, weirdly, late breakout last season where it was just unexpected. He's playing more like a game manager, but the team's still going to get a bunch of wins this season. I think the Bengals are going to beat them. I think they're just going to continue to Chase the ball, especially with Higgins being injured, kind of just forces that pressure onto him. But that's also going to open up the run game or at least the checkdowns for different passing opportunities if you force the targets to Chase. So I think Bengals win just like you.
All right, so the next one we're going to cover is the 49ers, undefeated 49ers at the Cleveland Browns. It's always tough when the West Coast teams go that far east. I just think the 49ers are probably the best team in the NFL. As long as Brock Purdy's playing like he does, they have weapons on offense, great offensive line, a great defense. They had probably one of the most impressive performances of the season on Sunday night against the Cowboys.
Yeah, just completely shut them down.
Dominated Dak Prescott, made Dak look horrible.
Made Dak look like Zach Wilson, Jameis Winston.
Or like Dak Prescott.
Boom. Danny Dimes.
So I think the 49ers are going to come in. I think they're going to give Watson a hard time. Deshaun Watson's not been playing well. I got the 49ers winning on the road in Cleveland.
So the San Francisco 49ers are coming in favored by 6 with an over-under of only 37.5. So it screams that it's not going to be a very high-scoring game. I think one of the things we can bank on, or at least I'm going to bank on, is CMC extending his historic touchdown streak. So I'm not even going to worry about it. It's happening. I think if the 49ers stay healthy, this is the Super Bowl champions this year. I think Brock Purdy is just going to as long as nobody, Debo stays healthy, Ayuk stays healthy, CMC and Purdy, they stay healthy, we're good. We got a Super Bowl out of the 49ers. I think they're going to win, but I think the Browns are crafty enough to cover this 6-point spread.
All right, so the next game we're going to look at is another one of the NFL's undefeated teams and probably best teams, the Philadelphia Eagles, going to New York, taking on the Jets. Usually they're in MetLife taking on their rival, the Giants, this time taking on the Jets. The Jets coming off of a win against the Broncos to kind of maybe give Zach Wilson some confidence getting the dub. Philly has just been great this year.
Right back to where they were
They're
last season.
They're kind of just like the 49ers were like, they don't really have a weakness. They have weapons on offense. They have a quarterback performing great.
The only way to beat them is to outplay them.
That's it. They have a sick defense. I think it's clear in the NFC the 49ers and the Eagles are the two best teams. I think Philly goes to New York. I think they get the win over the Jets. Zach Wilson has not been playing bad the past couple weeks. I think he continues not playing horrible, but I just think the better team wins.
Yeah, when the Eagles are playing everybody and just trouncing them, not even letting anybody else show up for the game, they're playing with perfect form, like you said.
They've had a few close games.
No weakness. Yeah, but nothing that made me feel like they were going to lose.
They went to overtime with the Commanders.
I just didn't feel like they were going to lose. It's a divisional game. Those are just tougher, naturally. Those teams, for whatever reason, I don't understand that. A team that's obviously so much better, how does the division...
It's the NFL.
Yeah, but the divisional games, it's just crazy that it can be that close when the teams are that far apart.
Like schemes and stuff.
I agree. I think the Eagles are going to push their way to victory, and I don't have an issue with that play either. I think whatever. If you can't stop
I don't understand why.
Stop complaining.
I don't understand why everybody's complaining about it. So we both got the Eagles. Next one we're going to look at is the Detroit Lions, one of the most entertaining and surprising teams in the NFL, taking on another team that's kind of surprising too in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's two quarterbacks that everybody thought they were
Done?
Somebody else's trash, I guess you would say. Jared Goff, he's come in and he looks great with the Lions.
Man.
And then Baker Mayfield, he was definitely somebody people wrote off. And he isn't, it's not like he's been playing like an MVP.
He's not playing lights out, but he's playing great.
He's playing great, and you can tell the team actually likes him.
Yeah.
And it's a good surprise. Good to see him doing well. I think everybody's going to be picking Detroit in this game because of how well they've been playing, but I just think there's something about going to Tampa. I think Tampa's a gritty team. I think they like, as we said, Baker Mayfield. I think they're going to play for him. I think the Bucs somehow, some way, don't ask me how, figure out a way to get a win over the Lions.
So the Lions, man, they're a crazy team with Hutchinson on the defense. They made the best trade they could have made with Jared Goff trading Stafford, making that swap. It seemed initially that they lost that trade too, with the Rams immediately going to win a Super Bowl. But now it's starting to look like Detroit's had the last laugh. It seems like the system's starting to work better for Goff.
It worked for both teams because you can't say the Rams don't regret anything. They got
I think both teams won the trade, but the last laugh goes to the Lions. You got a little bit better depth out of them. It's a cheaper trade, so it was easier to get a couple other pieces for them, and they also weren't good, which gave them a couple picks, or a better pick, I should say. I do think the Lions are going to come in here and win. I agree the Bucs are gritty and they're a tough team, but I think the Lions just all around better offense, better defense. I don't think the Bucs are going to have what it takes here.
All right, and the last football game we're going to cover is Sunday Night Football this week. The Cowboys at the LA Chargers. This is one of those, you don't know what, with these two teams playing. These teams play crazy games where they can either blow teams out, get blown out, have crazy turnovers, crazy plays happen. I think this is going to be a super entertaining game, and I think the Cowboys, this is the kind of game the Cowboys are going to come in and win.
I agree. I think the Cowboys are going to win here. They have a 2-point favorite with an over-under of 50.5.
There's definitely going to be more Cowboy fans in LA than Charger fans.
Dude, the Chargers are weird. Justin Herbert can't catch a break. I think we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and you kind of pointed out. It's not that he can't catch a break. He's just not clutch.
I like him. He has all the things you want in a quarterback. He just doesn't win. He doesn't know how to win games.
It's weird. It's so weird because they're such a good team through and through. They have a great run game.
He was at Oregon in college, and they were always good, but they never were like a great team.
Yeah. So Mike Williams out for the rest of the year, Achilles injury a couple weeks ago. That hurts the Chargers offense. Playing against the Dallas defense that we have seen all season. Granted, I know they've only beaten the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants, which,
Still in it. I hate that argument because it's like it's the NFL. Every win counts the same. So.
But those are just worse teams. They got blown out as soon as they faced somebody like the 49ers. But I think Dallas is going to win here. I agree with you. It's going to be a shit show of a game.
I don't even think it's going to be a shit show. I just have no idea it could be the greatest game of all time.
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall here for it to just be like a total combined 6 interception game, but also 7 combined in the air touchdowns. I think it's just going to be a shit show. I picked Dallas. Who do you have?
I have Dallas as well.
All right, so let's break down the standings for the bets and picks for the current season. I went 10-5 for my picks this past week. Christian went 9-6. We both got upset on Dawson, Texas, Notre Dame, the Bills, and the Ravens. The only difference we had in picks there, I had Joaquin Buckley winning. You had Alex Morono. Turns out he was not the great white. It was Buckley for the win. Betting-wise, I did pretty good, 4-1. Christian, what'd you do?
I did 2-3. I lost Dawson moneyline, Murano moneyline, and Washington State moneyline. They lost to UCLA, and I won 49ers, who dominated the Cowboys, as we talked about earlier.
Sheer domination.
And I had the night. I thought Bama, it was good value, minus 135, and they performed, and they beat Texas A&M. So that was my second win.
Nice. I went 4-1, like I said. I had Bill Algeo money line. I had Felipe Lin's money line. That fight got canceled, so I ended up going with Bengals money line, and they cashed there. Dober versus Glenn under. We got a knockout in the first round, so that was awesome. I got the Wildcats and the Bulldogs over 47.5. They got that, I think, within the first few minutes of the third quarter. It was great. And I lost Missouri covering 6.5 to LSU. I'm not even really mad about that one because LSU beat them by more than 7, so cool. But overall, that moves us to pick-wise. Christian's at 73, 46-1. I'm 79, 40-1, moving us to 35 wins, 24 losses, and 2 pushes for my bets. And Christian, you have won 32 bets and lost 29. We're both getting pretty close to even there, so we need to pick that up. ChatGPT had a fantastic week, 12-3 in picks, moves it to a total of 39, 14-1.
They're way better than us.
Dude, we might have to start looking at that. That's getting pretty crazy.
He's doing way better than us.
So for picks and everything this week, just listen to everything we said before. That's going to give you a kind of live breakdown of our reasoning as to why we think such and such are going to win. What do you have for your UFC bets this week, Christian?
So I did 2 UFC bets, 3 football bets. My 2 UFC bets are Maya Arujo, the over in that fight, Arujo. Right. And then I have the under in Chavez de Silva.
Nice.
Not Chavez, Chairez.
Yeah,
Chairez,
yeah.
Chairez de
All
Silva.
Right. I only have one UFC fight, or one UFC bet this week. I ended up going with 1 UFC, 2 NCAA, and 2 NFL. I was about to say UFL. My UFC bet is Cameron Simon. He's plus 125 money line. I think it's great value. I think he's going to go to 10-0. For college, I'm going to just jump right into it. I have the Oregon Ducks winning plus 125 money line as well. Also, the USC Trojans are plus 112 underdogs on the money line. So I'm taking just 3 plus money lines for my first 3 bets.
I also have USC money line at plus 114. And then I don't have Oregon. I have Oregon State money line minus 185.
That's the Beavers, right?
The Beavers.
Nice.
Taking on UCLA. And then my NFL bet, my one NFL bet is I have the Cincinnati Bengals money line minus 162.
I hope you hit that one, man. I took 2 NFL, like I said. I got the Lions versus Bucks over 43.5 at minus 110. I think this is going to be, it's not going to be a very high scoring game, but I think we're going to get, more than 3 touchdowns total, each. And then my last bet is the San Francisco 49ers covering 5.5 over the Browns. I think, regardless of what I said previous, I'm doubling down on the 49ers. I think they're going to be the Super Bowl winners this year by just dominating everybody.
Thanks for listening to episode 17 of Split Decision. Check us out next week when we recap UFC Vegas 81, take a look ahead to UFC 294, and give you some of our football thoughts.